Well, hello there, friends and kin, and welcome to the very first episode of the Green Grimoire. In the Green Grimoire series, I am going to present to you things that I have found useful to my own personal practice, and explain to you why they are useful. And these are anything, and this can be anything from elements of ritual to books that I use, to even to working tools and objects that play a role in my practice. So this is going to be a fun series because especially when I get to objects or props, if we want to call them that, we might end up looking at a few craft projects, which I think will be really fun. So I'm going to kick off episode one of this series with a book that was very crucial in the evolution of my craft. Because at a time when my personal craft felt stagnant and stale, and like I had really lost my connection with it, it was a point in my life when I was feeling disconnected from a number of things, not just my spirituality and my craft, but I was feeling disconnected from a good majority of my life, and it was a very unpleasant chapter. So when I found this book, it assisted me to look at my path through a very different lens, and really helped revitalize a lot of my personal spiritual practice. So I owe a great deal of debt to this book, and that is The Crooked Path by Kelden. And I believe this book has become very popular in modern witchcraft circles, and for good reason. It's helped a lot of other people with the same issue it helped me with. It helped show them a very different brand of witchcraft, and opened a lot of doors for them that they didn't even know existed. So I am going to zero in on the things that I personally appreciated about this book. And for one, the way it's laid out and the way it progresses. This book is filled with, I'll give you a count here, a total of 47 exercises. And these are everything from rituals to writing prompts, um, and a variety of practices intended to help you build connections that will empower your craft, both connections both internally and externally. He also has several articles that he calls from the Black Book, and most of these are recipes of some kind, and I've loved those. Starting from the very beginning, though, chapter from the very first chapter, and this is probably what really pulled me in. And excuse me, he starts off chapter one in defining traditional witchcraft, trying to explain the differences between what traditional witchcraft is as opposed to Wicca, and that brings us to the very first exercise, actually, where he gives you a writing prompt of defining traditional witchcraft for yourself, and uh, and then later on you get another prompt of being able to explain the difference between Wicca and traditional witchcraft. So we go into chapter two, which is the historical development of witchcraft. This is the part that really reeled me in. Um, there are several books I've read over the course of my life that have impacted my practice, that give the story of witchcraft in the 20th century going into the 21st, and how it developed. And of course, from there, we all know Gerald Gardner, uh, Doreen Valiant, and I don't know if she pronounces it Valiant or Valiente. Uh, Please correct me in the comments if you know the right way. I have always, for many years, I pronounced it Valiant, and but I've heard people say Valiente, and I don't know which one is correct. So by all means, if you know, please share it. Uh, but these are common names that pop up over and over again in the vast majority of books that particularly cover the Wiccan tradition of witchcraft. Gardner's name is mentioned here. He is one of the figures that pushed the modern witchcraft movement into the public view and made it accessible for people. Now, what Kelden does here is he adds characters to the story that a lot of modern Wiccan books leave out. Why? I'm not sure. That's actually a really good question. So I'm interested again in the comments. Let me know why you think these individuals are often left out of the story. And that is Cecil Williamson and Robert Cochrane. I'm ashamed to admit it, but before I read this book, I really didn't know who either of those individuals were. I ran across Cecil's name a couple of times in reference to the Museum of Witchcraft, one of the museums of witchcraft. But I didn't really know anything about him other than that. And I had never heard of Robert Cochrane before picking this book up. And being somebody who was, almost just as pivotal as Gardner in some ways, Doreen worked with him, and we learn that from this book. Doreen worked with a lot of these, or knew most of these initial movers and shakers of modern witchcraft, and picked up something from each of them. In fact, she often, I believe her role in the evolution of modern witchcraft is often overshadowed by several of these other individuals. She contributed so much and really went the distance as far as trying to find people who could teach her and train her and trying to find sources of information to empower her craft and shared much of that information over the course of her life. And even though her name is well known in witchcraft circles, I feel like her contributions are often underappreciated. Again, let me know in the comments if you agree with that sentiment. Uh, but Robert Cochrane and his clan of Tubal-Cain, I had never uh, I had never heard anything about this guy until I read this book. And I've since collected a few works that elaborate on Cochrane and his role in the evolution of modern witchcraft. Very fascinating rabbit hole to go down. Uh, Kelden also tells us about 1734 fairy and American traditional witchcraft. I I had heard of fairy witchcraft, Feri. I had heard of it, but I really didn't know what it was. So Kelden definitely helped me um, explore that rabbit hole a little bit. And then he goes into traditional witchcraft versus Wicca, and that brings us to our second writing prompt, which is defining the difference for yourself, understanding the difference for yourself. And between each part of the book, he has these narrative sections that kind of paint an artistic image of the information coming in the next part. It kind of puts it all in context, and I love that. That was a very, very, very nice touch. Because it gives the material more personality, I think. It gives you this imagery that you can place the material into and understand how it applies. Uh, and so that was again a very, very, very nice touch and something I deeply appreciated because I tend to absorb information better when I am given some sort of visual aid or some sort of example in which to place the information so I can see how it functions in a practical sense rather than strictly theoretic. So those little miniature narrative introductions to the different parts of the book really helped me. So he walks you through magical basics, from giving you solid definitions of all of the terminology he uses. What's a hex? What's a curse? What's banishing? What's binding? Um, a reflection on ethics. And this actually ties into the video I just posted to the Green Roundtable about the presentation of witchcraft ethics in the 20th and 21st century. But what he really prompts you to do is for you to define ethics for yourself. So rather than handing you some sort of ethical dogma and telling you believe this or else, uh, he rather encourages you to reflect within yourself and find your ethics within what sits well with you and what doesn't, and write that out and define it for yourself. He goes into the basics of the magical process, which he puts it into very understandable terms, and walks you through every step of the way. Uh, I like how he presents ritual format because it's very simplistic, but it hits every nail on the head. And going through the witch's tools, he very thoroughly explains what every tool is and what it does, what its applications are. A couple of exercises even walk you through how to make some of your implements and your tools. So just all in all, uh, if you're looking for a traditional witchcraft 101 book, I really can't recommend anything better than The Crooked Path by Kelden. Now, there's certainly plenty of other amazing books on traditional witchcraft. Many of them will be featured in this series. But as a 101 introduction book, I really don't think a better work exists at this time. Uh, because, again, it is very simple, it is very straightforward, it is purposely written in a way that anybody can understand. And Kelden is also very respectful to Wicca, which is another big difference. There are some books I've been exposed to on traditional craft that are very a good chunk of its contents boil down to Wicca bashing, and that's a major turnoff for me. And and I'm really like that with just about any book I read, even if it's not related to witchcraft. If a considerable amount of your material is revolves around bashing people that approach the topic different from you, rather than presenting your own material and representing your practices, that's just a major turn off for me, because it's harder for me to take your it's just harder for me to take you seriously, because you're more concerned with putting yourself on this pedestal and pointing out why these other people are inferior to you, or why they're not as not as authentic as you. You know, don't concern yourself with that. Tell me about your practice, why it works for you, and where you got your inspiration from, and that's what captures my attention. Kelden actually goes out of his way, I believe, to be respectful of Wiccans. Thorn Mooney gave a very positive review, which appears at the front of this book, and he does mention Thorn Mooney a couple of times in the book, and it's always in a very respectful way. He and I that's another thing that I deeply appreciated about his presentation, is that it was not he never once devolved into Wicca bashing. It was all about, here's traditional craft as I practice and understand it. Here's the core of my practices, the core of my perspectives. For your benefit, do with these things as you will, and I wish you the best of luck on your journey. And that sort of a straightforward, respectful approach is just about the best way to present the material, in my opinion. And again, I deeply appreciate the love that went into the writing of this book, the respectful tone of it, and and it's just written in one of the most productive ways to get someone introduced to the concept and building the foundation of their practice. So, well done, Kelden, and if you're just looking into traditional or folkloric witchcraft, again, you're not going to find a better place to start than this. And with that, thank you for joining me for this first episode of the Green Grimoire. And I look forward to any discussion you want to engage in the comments. If you've read this book, what's your opinion of it? If you think there's another book that's a better 101 book, lay it out for me. And if I haven't read it, I'll grab it. And maybe it'll be on a future episode. As always, blessings, brothers and sisters, friends and kin. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.